info that in your machine. All right, so you can see there's my Flutter environment. There's something not set up properly, so you will see some errors over there and here, but that's fine for now. All right, so this is basically the chapter 1 key points, and it's easy and just a concept go through. Yeah. So let us go to chapter 2. Chapter 2 key points. Yes, so for last week, you also learned about how to create a new app with Flutter. So you can use the command Flutter create and come with your app name. But for now, I will use this command Flutter letters create testing ABC. So for info, because my machines have multiple Flutter version, and I'm not using the original Flutter, so I'm using the Flutter letters. So, but for you, you can just use the Flutter normal Flutter create. It's fine for you. But for me, I'm using this for demo. So let me just create this one. So you can do this in your terminal or in Windows, what you call that, bash profile or something. I don't really remember. I'm using the Mac. So so you see testing ABC is created. So I can open this file, open. So you can see there's a testing ABC over there. Yes, and this is the default Flutter applications. Yeah, that's it for this. And also you learn about what is widget, the basic concept of widgets, and also what is material app. So for people who don't know, oh, where's my thing? Hold on, let me open again. And Flutter Apprentice. All right, so you need to know about the material app. Material is the first widget that you will be used when you create a Flutter app. So this is almost the root widget that you will be used. It is, you can call it a root widget as well, or something else. So this is the material app, and also a scaffold. Scaffold you will see in here. Scaffold is basically a structure of your Flutter. So this structure gives you a bar, bodies, and more and more. So you can see over there. A scaffold gives you a lot of things. Maybe I run the emulator so you can have a better visualization. Yeah, but just for your info, scaffold gives you the structure of the page. So you can construct a lot of structure within the scaffold. Also, you can put a lot of widget within the scaffold. So yeah, let's see. All right, so let me adjust it a bit. All right, so this is the scaffold of the page. So you can see there is a title. We're passing a title into the home page where it's from here. So we're passing this title, astronomy picture of the day. This is the title to the home page. So this is the app bar and this is the body. So pretty simple, right? This is the scaffold and this is the structure. So yeah, this is the recap. And yeah, so something you need to know that Flutter comes with a lot of stateless and stateful widget. So stateless is the basic one. So you can create a stateless widget. Let's say testing widget. So this is a stateless widget. So basically, this kind of widget you just use for widget rendering. So nothing to do with the state, just for widget rendering. So, and there's another kind which is stateful. So you are going to maintain the state over there. But for this point, no step to maintain because the state is going to be the next step. Yeah, that is for this one, for the recap. And yeah, we can start the chapter 3.
Yeah, so right before that, we would take in questions if you have on the previous chapters. So maybe you have went through the book and then you were trying out the example and you are trying to build your app with the concept that you learned. If you found any question, then please let us know.
Yeah. Do you have any questions or how do I switch the tab?
All right.
Maybe.
If no, then I think we can proceed. Howard?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. All right. So let's start with the chapter 3. So, getting start. So, in this chapter, we will introduce you about basic widgets. So, something you need to know: Flutter is everything about widgets. So, you use widgets to build the app, to build the page, to build everything. So, everything is about widget. Yeah, that's the core concept and also the most important concept. So, let's start. All right. Um, in Flutter, we default using the material library. So this is for the left side is the material library. So this is usually you see how the design used in Android, but this also the default one used in Flutter. For iOS, you might want to use some more, I would say, more like iOS design. So there is something called Cupertino, which is the right side one. So this is how it looks like. So in Flutter, you can actually define which one to use, but by default, it always to be the material. But you can always define, let's say, Android use this design and iOS use the Cupertino design. So this is always achievable in the Flutter because Flutter is always give you the most freedom way for you to construct the widgets. So by using them, you just simply import one line. For material, just import this one material, and for Cupertino, you just import the Cupertino, and then you can use all the design that in the material library and Cupertino library. That's pretty simple, right? All right. Um, and the next one, we're going to set a theme. So at this point, you can see. All right. How do I hide this? Throw this somewhere. All right. In the Flutter, we always have a YAML file. This YAML file control all the dependency libraries and all the asset image versions and so on. So at this time, we are using a library called a dependency called Google Fonts. So you can actually, so there's actually a website for you called PubDev. So from this website, you can use a lot of package or dependency that's available for Flutter and Dart. So yeah, feel free to go through. This called pub.dev. Yeah, and let's continue. So now we are using the Google Fonts. So let's go to the theme file. All right. So as a developer, you might say, oh, I want a light theme, I want a dark theme. So here's a demo for you how to make it. So at first you need to define a class called, let's call it airport theme. And we also define a static method for the light text. So in this static method light text, we have a black color text with different font size for body text and headline 1, headline 2. And we do the same things for the dark text, but we have the white color text. Cool, right? Pretty simple for this one. And we're going to use this over here. So this is the light theme. We're going to wrap this light text theme in something called theme data. But take note that this theme data is not a widget. Um, yeah, it's just not a widget, but I don't know what exactly is this. You just need to remember it's not a widget. So it's something for you to set up the theme for your Flutter app. So you can see I set quite something here, some light theme, some color scheme, also some text. But the most important one is this light text theme that I set over there, and also the dark theme, which is pretty similar for with this light one, but just another color. So I call this over here the main. So this is the main, the basic root widget, and we're having a two theme. One is a normal theme and one is a dark theme. So the user, when the user is using a light theme, the Flutter app will automatically switch to a light theme. Otherwise, we will switch to a dark theme. So we can have a look if we change to a dark theme. So for some reason, I'm always hot restarting my app instead of hot reload because my configuration have some problem with my Flutter 2. Yeah, but Flutter 1 is totally fine. So that should be fine for you just because I have multiple Flutter version. So I mess up some configurations. Yeah. Yeah. So hot restart always take a longer time. So give me some patience.
I think at this point, it is stuck already. So maybe you want to stop the build and.
Oh no, it's complete.
Okay.
It's take a longer time. All right.
Oh, that's really long. Okay.
All right. So you can see there's a dark theme over here. So it's actually controlled by this theme. But so what if your device changed to a dark theme? Then this will go through this dark theme. Yeah, pretty simple, right? All right. Then we go through the next theme. And the next, we will go through. Let's go. Let this complete first. We're going to change the branch. Let's just stop this. It's taking too long time. All right, let us go to step 2. So let me run. All right, so the next thing we're going to create the app structure and also the navigations. So navigation is always important in your app, right? You need to allow the user to navigate to this page and the next page or whatever page, right? So this is how a structure, a scaffold look like. So a scaffold provides you a bar, a content area, means a body, also a bottom navigation bar. You can also put a footing action button over there. So this is how a scaffold look like. All right. So in this step 2, we have a bottom navigation bar, and the recent tab is the previous tab we have. So this is how it looks like, and the other tab is just normal text in the center. Pretty simple, right? And we're going to look into the code. Yeah, the fun part. Oh, sorry. Let me know if the code is too small. I can zoom in a little bit. All right, let us start. So this is the home page. This recent is actually the, is it this one? All right, this recent import page means this page. We are using a widget called list view and using the builder method. So this list view allows you to build a list. Straightforward, right? Yeah. Okay. So by using this list view builder, you need to set up 2 variables. One is the item count. You need to set up how long the list is going to be. So at this point, I'm going to set the airport samples length, meaning I have a set of data. So at this data, I only have 3 airport. So you can see over here, I only have 3 data. So the length is 3. So the item count is also 3 at this point. An item builder define what you're going to build in this list view. So I'm going to say I'm going to build a gesture detector for each widget. So I'm going to have 3 gesture detector, and this on tap basically saying when I tap on this, I'm going to push this page to a detail page. So there's an airport detail. I'm going to push the page to there, and there's an index indicating which index currently is. So 0, 1, 2, meaning the current index. Yeah, straightforward. And the child, there's always a child. So in this child, we're having a cut widget. So this is a cut widget. We're having a structure like a column. There's a column and the image and the text with the date, and come with another text with the title and some spacing over there. So step by step, let us start with the padding. Padding basically give you some spacing over there. Let's say from here, there's a padding right with the image, meaning the image have 8 spacings all around, top, bottom, left, and right. So left is 8, right is 8, top and bottom is also 8. And the text is the date. That is the date, and the coming is the title. That's pretty simple. And another size box with 8 height, and there is it over here. Yeah, this is how the structure looks like. And the next thing is, all right, we're going to talk about how to build this bottom navigation bar. All right, so this is our homepage. So just now we have a stateful widget, but we don't have any states to control. But this time we have some states to control. At this point, the state, sorry, at this point the state will be this selected index, because this index will always be controlled by the app. So we need to know what is the index right now. All right, this selected index meaning what is the current index. For example, this airport will be 0, this recent will be 1, and this ferrets will be 2. And default, I initialize it with 0, meaning when you start the app, it always start with this airport page. And I have a static variables contains these pages, current, recent, and ferrets. So let us look at the structure. All right, so pretty simple. We have an app bar. So this is the app bar, contain the title that we introduced just now. Also a body. Bodies cover these pages, this one, with the selected index. So I will explain the theory later on. So I will explain the logic later on, and cover your safe area. So this safe area allows your app, how to say, not covered by, not blocked by the notch, because maybe with the latest iOS device, also iPhone device, there is some notch at the top or bottom that will block the UI. So this safe area can save you from that. And then we have this, the core one, the bottom navigation bar, means this one. All right, the current index meaning, yeah, pretty simple, current index, it is what it is. And come with the on tap. So in on tap, we have this void function called on tap bottom navigation bar item, meaning if I tap on this, we'll trigger this function. Okay, and you can see this on tap actually return us an integer value. So this integer value is we call it index. So it basically tells us which index we tap on. All right. So we look at the code. There's a set state. So for people who don't know, set state is actually, you can take it as like a magic in Flutter that help you to rebuild the app, immediately rebuild the app. So, or refresh the app. So if your page need to need some user interaction or need some immediately refresh, you can use a set state. But set state always used in a stateful widget. It's not allowed to use in a stateless widget. Yeah, that's something to take note. And yeah, pretty simple. You just update the state from the index to the selected index. There's some parameter passing. And from the selected index, we will pass in these pages. So we can know, oh, from index 0, I should render this page. Index 1, I should render this page. And index 2, I should render this page. Yeah. And yeah, it is. And items allows you and define what item it is. And for here, it accepts a list of bottom navigation bar item. So bottom navigation bar item is actually a widget. So you can see, no, it's not here. Oh, is it a widget? Whatever. Okay. All right. So it accepts a list of bottom navigation bar items. So the first one accept this one, icon, photos with airport, and the second one accept this one, calendar, and the third one is the favorites. Yeah, straightforward enough. And this is how the structure look like. All right, let us proceed. And I think, where is it? Hold on. Let me check, is it? Step 3 is custom airport. All right, so let us proceed to step 3. All right, let us do a hard restart. It's a bit slow.
Hamun, you can try to tap on the Chrome again so that you have the focus on it. Then it will restart the page properly.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we have the step 3. We are going to I'm going to demonstrate how to do a custom widget. Also, for this one, it's pretty simple. Let me try to repeat. All right, so you can see the design is obviously different from the previous one. The design is nicer, right? The text is stacked together, and the design obviously is more user friendly, right? So I'm going to teach you how to do this. All right. Airport card. All right. So we are using this. Let's see. All right. So we can have a look. From this airport tab, we can see there's only one data. So it's pretty simple because we're using these airport samples with the 0 means the first data. So we only hard code one data over here. So it's only have one. And the recent tab, yeah, just not the one. But this time we're passing the index. So sorry, this yeah, I think I didn't explain this just now. So with index, so we can render based on the index, how many index it is. All right, so let's go to how to create a custom widget. So in Flutter, there is a lot of widgets that you can use. But what if, let's say, there is you need some widget, but Flutter doesn't provide. So at this time, you can create yourself. So at this point, this airport card is a custom widget. All right, because it extends stateless widget and created by yourself means a custom widget. It is. So we can look at this. And this not too much. All right. Let's look at the code. So I will explain code by code. So how do we achieve this? So maybe some of you guys have web experience or web dev experience. So what is this container is? Container is basically like empty div in HTML. So it's just used to group children. So it's just for grouping. So this is a container. And at this container, I'm grouping the image. So I'm putting this image inside with some custom constraint, height, width, and colors here and there. But the important one is how should I put the text over there? So to achieve this kind of design, we always need to use a widget called stack. This stack is actually provided by the Flutter library. So you can always use this stack. So stack is actually a widget that used to stack up widgets layer by layer. So first of all, I stack up the text title, and then I have the date, but this time I use a position widget, meaning control the position just slightly below the title. And if the date is now, I'm going to render a container instead of a date. And the last one is another position widget. So this position widget, I'm rendered at the bottom right. So this is the copyright. So you can see this at the bottom right over here. All right. So this is the ideal case. But what if let's say your text is too long? Let's say I just randomly typing something. What happens if your text is too long? All right, you can see the text is actually stacked over, right? So it's not nice. So we have to fix this. At this point, we can use a widget called column, because column is rendered accordingly. So we can use column in this way. So by using column, so you can see it's actually fixed, but it also throws me some error. And also the rendering, it's not nice. It's in center, right? So something to take note is position widget. The parent of position widget should be a stack. At this case, my parent widget of position is a column. So it will throw an error saying that incorrect use of parent data widget. So this is expected, and we can just remove this position widget. Yeah, just remove this widget and restart. Yeah. So now I'm not getting any error. But how do we fix this text rendering in the middle? But we want it to render at the start. So for now, we can look into the column widget that we just used. Column actually provides a lot of customization. So at this point, we are going to use something called cross-axis alignment. So it's an alignment for the cross-axis. So we're going to use this start. So by default, it's actually a center. So we can see it's rendering center, but now we are changing the behavior to start. Again. All right, so you can see now it's rendered in the start. Yeah, there's the ideal solutions. And yes, we can slowly conclude the chapter 3. Let us go to the key points. So yeah, chapter 3, which is now introduce you the structured navigations, the bottom navigation bar, the scaffold, and also how to display information by using those widgets, text, column, row, or whatever, and also the positioning widgets. So these positioning widgets is actually quite risky. So you should always remember the parent of position should always be a stack. So this is something very important. Otherwise, you will always get an error. And also to design system in Flutter, Material and Cupertino, you can always use either one or both of them. By default, it's using material. So if you want customization, it's also Flutter allow you to do that. Yes, and scaffold widget give you the basic structure, as I mentioned quite a lot of time. And container widget, yeah, it's like what I say, it's an empty div, the empty widgets that used to group all of the widgets. And stack allow you to stack child widgets on top of each other. Yeah, this is the chapter 3. Yeah, pass back to you, Chen.
All right. Thank you, Herman, for sharing on chapter 3. So now is the time for question. If you have any, please let us know in the chat. And Intan, do we have any question this round? I think I saw one just now that I didn't answer yet. I think Kenyang was asking about Flutter or React Native. So yes, this is a very classic question and a good one. And again, it depends on your usage. So if let's say you want to build an app and you are looking for a package that maybe is not available in Flutter yet, but you when you are searching for a package in React Native, you can find one. Then yeah, so it depends on the feature that you want to develop. Either one can be a really good choice. But nowadays, like I would just say, please try with Flutter because it already has so much contribution and a lot of companies are using it. And the open source community is very active. You can find more and more packages now in the Flutter or the Dart packages repository. So feel free to check out both, but I would say give Flutter a try. Okay. Anyway, this will be a good info for anyone who's interested or who are thinking whether to use Flutter or React Native. Thanks for asking. And do we have anything else? When is it better to use Android? So this one, again, it depends on the feature that you are developing. So if let's say the app that you develop is highly dependent on some native integration, one example is if you are using the AR camera, the depth camera on Android, then maybe you want to consider develop on native Android. Or maybe you have a SDK that is only available in Android that you want to use, then unless you want to write the bridge in Flutter to communicate with the Android SDK, you might want to consider developing in Android. So these are the cases where you want to consider develop on the native platform instead. Okay, thank you. So yes, thanks Sue. Grab and WeChat are using Flutter. So you can see that more and more companies are trying to adopt Flutter to become their main development SDK because you can really save a lot of time. You don't have to communicate between different teams to develop the same feature. And the performance is great too. When you are comparing like the speed of Flutter and native, you can see that Flutter and native are getting very close. So for Yes, for debugging purposes, Flutter is also very good, which I think Harmon will be covering later in the DevTools part. Yeah.
That's correct. I will be cover that just for some basic concept, not too deep. Yeah, I should start the chapter 4.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Yong. All right. In chapter 4, we will cover about more on the logic side and the framework side. So let's coding in chapter 4. Yep. So we can have a look at the structure. So this is how the Flutter structure look like. So from a root widgets, slowly grow to a larger tree. So from, let's say here, cut to container center, container column, and another more widgets and coming on. So when you change some part of this code, for example, you have some state changes. Let's say in this container, you have some state changes. So the widgets below this tree, meaning this part, sorry, just below this tree, so container, column, author card expanded, will also be rebuilt. So this is something to take note. The child will be rebuilt when the parent is rebuilt. Okay, all right. But the above one will not be rebuilt. This is how it works. This also some basic mechanism. And yes, so this is the layer. I think it's introduced in chapter 1, or is it? No, I'm not sure. So okay, so this is how the Flutter architecture looks like from the framework Dart and the engine C or C++ and the embedded side. So for us developer, we just need to take care of the framework side, which is the Dart and the Flutter. And the engine side, embedded side, most of the time you don't need to take care of that. You just need to concentrate on the Dart part and the Flutter. So in the framework layer, you can break into another 4 layers, which is the material cappuccino, as I mentioned just now. One is for Android, one is for iOS, and widgets, rendering, and foundation. So for these 4 layers, I would say 90% of your time you spend on this layer, widgets layer, or even 95% of your time you spend on this widgets layer. And yeah, you spend a little bit on this material and cappuccino, but for rendering and foundation, yeah, it's useful to know, but most of the time you don't need to bother it. Yes, and another thing, this is how the single widgets work under the hood. So as I said, you always need to take care about the widgets and the Dart part. So widgets is something that you will be keep calling and using and reusing in the app. So it's something that you should take concern of, and you should know what is widget and what is the concept of widget and everything about widget. But for the element and render objects, you just need to know there is something called element and render objects, but you don't need to know what exactly it does, because most of the time you don't need it unless you need some very sneaky play or very complex feature in your apps. Then you might need to look into it, but most of the time you don't need to understand it. Yeah, I would say this. And yeah, we can start the dev tool. So by using the dev tool, it's either you click on this icon. This is called Flutter DevTool Inspector, but I used to click on this. So you can open this. If Windows, you can click on Control-Shift-P, is it? But in Mac, you click on Command-Shift-P. So you can type Open DevTool. And here I choose this Open DevTool in web browser. How do I hide this? All right. So this is my first DevTool. Actually, something is missing, but yeah, it's all right. I can still introduce you the basic features. All right. So from this dev tool is actually, if you are a web developer, this structure look familiar to you because it's similar to web. And this is how the widget structure looks like. From the root, from the airport app and material app, homepage scaffold, layer by layer. And this is the text. And where's this? This is the text. Yeah, this is this text. And we can also change from direct change from this. For example, just now we changed the start, right? So just now we start, and then we can change to end, and you will see the changes is reflect immediately. Also, there's more changes like center, stretch. The changes is immediately. Yeah, something to know. And also something amazing. For example, yeah, if you, let's say you are new to Flutter, and yeah, let's say if you are new to the Flutter team, or your team is actually a lot of Flutter code, but you are new to the team. So there's something called select widget mode that allows you to debug easier to debug, because you can actually pick a widget. Let's say I pick this widget, I click on this, it actually leads me to the exact widget. Also in this layer, it leads me to the exact widget. So this allows you to find the piece of code very quickly and easily. So same to this, I can just click on this and I could go over there. Yeah. And I just close this like this way. Yeah. And there's more options over there. But some option my DevTool is missing, but I will show you. Let's see, is it over here? All right. So maybe you notice some of my tabs is actually missing. I only have Flutter Inspector and logging, but officially it should have more tab: Flutter Inspector, performance, CPU profiler, memory, debugger, network, logging, and app size. But for some reason, I think it's also my Flutter version management issues, because I have multiple Flutter version and I mess up some configurations maybe. And yeah, my dev tools only have fewer tabs in this Flutter tool. Yeah, but for you guys side should be no problems on this. Yeah. So each tab gives you information about the performance, CPU, memory, networking, the app size, and also more logging, your HTTP requests. All of that is in the log. And yeah, you have some slow animation over here. You can explore yourself. Also, there's something show baseline. Yeah, you can give you a better contrast on yourself by enabling these features. So you can give, oh, this is the center, is it center enough? Or yeah, by enabling this thing, you can explore yourself these features. And where is it? Oh, over here. Oh yeah, and one important thing about this tab too. So for this text, you can click into it and look at the details tree. So this details tree gives you all information about this single text. So you can see what is the size of this text, what is the weight, what is the family of this text, or even what else? You can see most of the values now by default. Let's see with another more useful widget to. All right, so you can see this center is in alignment center. Otherwise, other thing is now. So you can see a lot of info in this details tree for of a single widgets. Yes, and state widgets, as I mentioned, you should always use stateless by default. Only if you need to control state, then you change to the stateful widgets. Yeah, this is the basic concept. Yeah, you need to take note of this. So also a small note, if you install the Flutter extensions, and this is the Flutter extensions, so you can just simply type a shortcut key like me. So you can just quickly create a stateless widget or create a stateful widget. Yep, this is how it looks like. So this is the extensions part. And this is the life cycle of the widgets. For this one, I would say it's useful to know, but most of the time you also don't need to bother. But I can give a simple intro. Something you need to know is something is you frequently use. I can give a simple intro. For example, the init state. So init state only available in the stateful widgets. So it allows you to init the state when the app start. For example, how do I code the init state? Override init state. All right. So this is the init state. So I can do something with this. For example, by init, I want to call it. Can I do this? All right. Let me try. Can I do this thing? All right. Okay. So at this point, at first, default is the default value is 0, but by init, I want to set the default value to 1. So you see when I restart, the default tab goes to this tab. So this is what the init state do. So it's a quite useful functions, and you will always use this in your app. Also, set state, as I mentioned just now, make some immediately change in your app. And other things, I think, yeah, build method. All right. So you need to know that in every Flutter widgets, we always call this build method. Without this build method, we cannot build a widget. So this build method is very important. We always call this build and contains a context. Excuse me. So this build method allows you to build widgets. So you always need this in every page. For example, every single page, you will see build at here, almost everywhere. So it's pretty important you know that, but you don't need to know the very details. You just need to know it's used for widget building. Yeah, otherwise, I'm just most of it you won't use it, but yeah, it's good to know and good to explore if you have free time. Yes, I think we can go to the key points. There is some more state changes, but yeah, I think it's just some basic. All right, so key points, come to key points. As mentioned, there are three trees in parallel: widgets, element, and render object trees. So you just need to know widgets at the moment. If you are not familiar with Flutter, just learn widgets is enough for you. And Flutter inspector, you need to know. So you can add it open from here, but I don't like it. I don't like this because it's open direct from my IDE and it blocks my view. So I don't like. So I just always open from this way. So it depends on you. Yeah. And also you should always start with stateless widget and only use stateful widgets when needed. Yeah, this is the keys. And here is the chapter 4. Yeah, pass back to you, Mentions. Is there any questions?
Okay, thank you, Harmon. I hope that you have learned something today from chapter 3 and 4. Let's see if we have questions for chapter 4. If you want to just unmute yourself, you can feel free to do so. And if you want to share your screen, we will also allow you so that we can debug together. And let's see, what are the questions? I think it's only so far from Kenyang. So it's kind of like inspect in Chrome. Yeah, you can say so, because you can always tap on each widget and then you can see the details, or you can just open it up in the DevTools and check it out. I personally also like the select widget mode a lot, because when there's a lot of widgets in the widget tree, it can be very difficult to locate which part of the code is related to. So from the DevTools, you use the select widget mode, you can easily find the piece of code that is responsible for that widget. Coding on the inspector, this I don't think is possible, but you can always make some quick change on on the attributes like what Harmon has showed just now, so that you can quickly check the result. If it's something that you want, then you can do the permanent change in your code. And is there a lot of Flutter project demand in Malaysia? Yeah, I think the demand is increasing. From the job posting I see on JobStreet and LinkedIn, many companies are starting to look for Flutter developers because of how flexible it is, and then the company can also save costs and developing in Flutter instead of hiring multiple teams like iOS team and Android team to work on something. Also, performance-wise, I think Flutter is better than React Native. This is arguable for some people, but I can confidently say that in Flutter, you can get near native performance. Okay, I think that's it for the topics today. We have covered chapter 3 and 4. Yeah, last chance for questions. There are a lot of freelance projects. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Okay. All right. So, wait, we have one more question from Sean. May I know when I build Flutter project for both iOS and Android? What is the change we should do? So this depends on your need. Just now, Harmon introduced Cupertino and also Material. So depends on how you want the UI to look like. In Flutter, the good thing is you can be very flexible. If you want the same look and feel on every platform, then you can do that. Or if you want your app to have different look and feel on different platforms, for example, on Android, then you want to show the Material style, and then on iOS, you want to show the Cupertino style, you can also do that. I think in the built-in widgets, there are also the adaptive mode where you can change the look and feel based on the device that it's running on. So yes, those are the changes that you can do. Yes, you can use Material in iOS. You can also use Cupertino in Android, whichever you like. Okay. If there's no more question, then now we can do the closing for today. So let's invite everyone to turn on your webcam so that